So you also saw what happened to us in so Edin, right? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, Edin.
Okay, Edin and Arthur, you know me very well. So you saw what happened to us at the Star on Monday.
Covina?
A bunch, not in Covina. It was earlier this week.
Oh no, Therma.
And we were attacked by a bunch of thugs. You know, this is where we're living right now. That's the big reason why I went all the way up to Berkeley, even if Ann Coulter, I was really crushed by Coulter's decision not to come.
Right.
And I said, I'm not going to sit back and do nothing. Freedom of speech needs to matter. We're not going to have a one-party fascist state. I'm just not going to have it. And we won. Antifa barely showed up. Berkeley police were shamed into doing. The mayor specifically is an Antifa acolyte.
Right.
The mayor. And so deliberately telling the police not to do anything. So, done. Yeah. And I just want to make sure, so you're from Montebello?
No, I'm from Cudahy.
You are from Cudahy?
Yes.
You were born there, or where does everybody get born, essentially? Because there's no hospital in the city.
Yeah, in Cudahy. That's where I was.
Is there a hospital there?
No, not there.
So like
in
straight
LA, Los Angeles, but I mean my parents.
But you're born there? No, I totally get it.
So lived in Cudahy 27 years. So my question is.
You are 27.
29.
29 now. Okay.
There was 2 years that I moved out to Linwood.
No, that's fine. I understand.
The point is, my question to you is, what is it that you're searching for when you come to our council meeting? Mm-hmm. What is it that you're searching for with your group as far as?
I want the sanctuary city policy revoked. And we've gone to other cities, by the way. People badgered me about it. You'll see we've gone to Culver City. We were there in El Monte, putting an end. It's rampant lawlessness, man, to have elected officials promoting illegals and telling them how to avoid capture, to avoid arrest, and how to essentially break the law. Okay. And I'm just not going to have it. And our team is diverse. You've seen it. And it's not, if you saw the bus ride up to Berkeley, I was the minority, if you want to use those terms. Yeah. We're a minority of minorities. We're a majority of majorities. Americanism is our creed. The policy needs to go.
Sanctuary. That's it.
And it's not a sanctuary. I was back in San Francisco at Pier 14 to commemorate Catherine Steinle's murder, brutal, in front of her own parents.
Yeah. I mean, criminals exist in every demographic.
Okay, but the problem. This is a common retort, and this is always my reply. We have Americans who commit crimes. That is our problem. That's a recognition of every country. Right. But illegals committing crimes should never happen if our borders were secured.
Okay. Like I said, the criminals exist in every demographic. Also, if we nitpick criminals and take it out on the law-abiding citizens, or we cannot treat law-abiding people like criminals just because they didn't meet the bureaucratic requirements of migration that abrogates their human right to travel and make contacts.
There is no human right to travel. No, there isn't. There's not. We have sovereign nations for a reason. It's essential. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he was also a civil rights activist. He was a victim of Soviet oppression. He was in a gulag for the greater part of his life. But even with those dire circumstances, he had to still enter this country through a legal process. He eventually did. Right. He lived in Vermont the greater part of his life because it reminded him of his the environment he had grown up in. Okay. There's no right to. No, I don't have a right to migrate into someone's house. That's an individual territory.
That's a different analogy. I mean,
so
that doesn't really.
If you don't accept that, Mexico has strict laws that they enforce. So does Nicaragua, Guatemala, Argentina, China, Hong Kong. Why is it that the United States can't enforce
I'm all for deporting criminals who are illegal. That's for sure.
So we're talking like violent criminal aliens.
Yes, I'm for that. I can be halfway at that. I'm all for that. Now, as far as someone who came here when they were 10 years old, they've been living here for 15 years. They probably haven't been able to set up documentation because there's a lot of lawyers here that are known to cheat people out of their money for that. People who don't know or don't have an education. What do you have an answer for those type of people?
My answer is, first I want to extend that there's a widespread answer to it. Rick Santorum gave the best because he actually did it on national television. Very risky for a politician to have the courage to do this. Perhaps losing the presidency gave him that courage. You're not trying to win a vote. This country has blessed those 10-year-olds, those 15-year-olds, those 20-year-olds. Those young people can go with their families to their home countries. They're in a position already to make this world a better place. We are a nation of laws. We're not a nation of can't govern by compassion, can't govern by pities or sob stories. It's just fundamentally unfair. And to go a step further, this problem has gone from bad to worse because of politicians who are seeking easy votes, looking for easy headlines, exploiting these children. But SoCal Connected had a documentary on this, and there was a family of Mexican descent. The parents were illegal, and the kids, they went back to Mexico and they set up to do it legally. I used to be I've written about this, I'll share it with you. You can find the letter that I wrote in the LA Times, October 2011. At one time, I had supported a trifurcation. Illegals here 0 to 5, goodbye, you don't come back. You're no chance.
Right.
5 to 15, around that, get in line, but you can pay a fine and come back in. Do it legally. And then for grandma and grandpa who've been here for 30 years, they pay a fine. Newt Gingrich had that view in 2012. When 2014 hit, and you have swarms of illegal alien minors coming to the border alone, I said, enough. No. Compassion, any partial amnesties are just going to invite more illegal immigration. Enough.
Even if you, they might not be, I mean, it's not just Mexicans coming here illegally. I mean, there's...
And I've never said that. I hope we're on record about that.
There's Salvadorians who are under the TPS system. Temporary.
There are British overstays. There are Chinese overstays. We have Asian illegals crossing our border now. I do. It is never about color. Yeah. There's a dialogue I had with an older gentleman who's a boxer, and he had a Catalonian visitor, and we went at it. He was upset because there was an immediate response that we're targeting people because of the color of their skin. I hope you've seen that video. No. I finally put it on YouTube, and we explained to him, this is not about color. It's not possible. I can't look at you or him or her and say you must be illegal. It's impossible. It's not even logical. And I brought up, there are Irish illegals in Boston. They gotta go. There are English illegals. A lawyer told me this. They gotta go. No, I've had enough of this. This is wrong. Even at a younger age, it's just a fundamental issue of moral value. It's wrong.
What about Salvadorians who are under the TPS, temporary protected status?
It's been so thoroughly abused. This is my initial response. I don't have full detail on that. Our system has been so screwed up after 8 years of lawlessness and arbitrary non-enforcement. Even when Obama issued these DACA and then the DAPA, a lot of people did not take advantage of them. And I would say for good reason, because there was no legal assurance. They were unconstitutional. And for no other reason, that's why DACA should be repealed. And, you know, there should be, you know, liberal-leaning amnesty advocates should actually be throwing parties right now because Trump hasn't reneged on it yet. Right. I'm not sure why. I will trust him that there's a reason why. But just so you know, I'm not.
Do you agree with everything that Trump does?
Of course not. I'm giving you an example. I also don't agree that tariffs is a way to safeguard American jobs. Tariffs as public revenue only, but they should get rid of the income tax, just as it was at the founding. They had tariffs and land sales. That's how the government accrued money. There was no taxes, and there shouldn't have been. And by having a thin revenue stream, you wouldn't see the expansion of the state we have today, which shouldn't be this big in the first place.
Like I said from the beginning, I
can't stress enough, this has never been about race. Yeah. It's a coincidence, not of my doing.
I don't see it that way. I don't take it personally. I see it as, like you said, you're going by the law. And it's, like you said, it's not about race. And that's fine.
And sanctuary cities do not protect people. Even the illegals themselves are not protected.
For instance, in Cudahy, Jack Guerrero says he's doing it for the safety of Cudahy citizens when the majority of Cudahy residents are undocumented. How is that making them feel
illegal?
Yeah, how is that making them feel safe if the majority of people who voted for him have family members who are undocumented?
How do you know that?
I know. I mean, 97% of people in Cudahy are Hispanic, and the majority are I would say they are undocumented.
But you don't know that.
Statistically, I grew up there. I mean, I know the statistics. So the point is that.
So you're drawing from a personal experience.
How is that making them feel safe? or someone who's going through the process, someone who's in the TPS list, a Salvadorian who is under the temporary protective status.
I'm going to have to look that up because I'm not familiar with that program.
How is that making them feel safe? Not being in a sanctuary city where ICE can come into your school or to anywhere. And you know they get greedy. I've seen them go into cities and they start picking ICE. Okay. They get greedy and they start picking up people who have never broken a law.
But they have broken the law by being in this country illegally.
I have a strong belief system that the majority of people who come here are refugees. They might not be under the TPS list. They might not be under the temporary protective status, but there is cartel violence. There is extreme poverty for them to come here. They don't come here with these bad intentions. I see them as refugees.
Well, here's the thing.
Might not be under the law. Might not be under the eyes of the law, but they are to me.
Okay. The answer to the world's problems will never be an open border. That's actually a pretty that's a position from a liberal Republican. It was Neil Kashkari when he ran for governor, and I didn't even vote for him on full record. I couldn't. Too liberal for me because. Okay, we can't have an open border, but illegals can have driver's licenses. I don't think so. It's not making our streets safer. I've studied it, by the way. Talked to Sandra Duran's family, killed by an illegal alien. So, you know, I can't put forward the argument that, you know, even illegals aren't safe in sanctuary cities. Honestly, that's not the problem for this sovereign nation and for the elected officials in these sovereign cities and states. Mr. Guerrero, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Markovich have a responsibility to the Constitution and therefore to abide by the laws. Sanctuary city policies do not. They're illegal, unlawful. There is no 10th Amendment propriety for that.
If it was unlawful, why was it
allowed to happen?
Yeah.
Obama didn't enforce our border laws. He didn't enforce our gun laws. Why do you think there was a rise in gun crimes? Jeff Sessions, serving as U.S. Senator at the time, this week with George Stephanopoulos. It's the ABC program is 2013, and he said, we have a gun enforcement problem. You know, federal gun crimes are not being enforced. It's the same thing with the immigration problem. The laws aren't being enforced. This president was the most lawless, just rewriting Obamacare with the phone and a pen. That's not acceptable. That's not our system.
Like I said, I came here to see your point of view. I didn't come here to change your mind or actually even debate.
Well, you brought a point of view. This temporary problem, you said?
Temporary
TST?
TPS, temporary protective status.
Okay, I
look into that.
I know there's also the Wilberforce law that was in 2008. But again, Bush enacted that, and we didn't see the swarm of illegals coming to our border. It's becoming excessively abused, and that's wrong.
Yeah, I'm not saying to open the borders. Not at all. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm just saying for the people who are escaping a drug war, escaping a civil war like the Salvadorian war, to have some sort of amnesty and naturalization. One last thing. The remark I made the first time you met me about the wetbacks thing. Yeah. That was a rebuttal that maybe I shouldn't have said that. I'm still 29 years old and I'm still learning.
Okay.
And yeah, I do apologize for what I said, but it was a rebuttal for someone else who had gave a speech in Cudahy, if I'm not mistaken.
That same day?
No, not the same day. It was probably 2 weeks prior to that. So my whole speech was written like in 2 minutes. It was a rebuttal towards another speech I had said. So it did come off wrong, but like I said, it wasn't towards how kind of you took it. Yeah.
Okay. It's not okay. Yeah. This is being reduced frequently to a race, to an identity politics thing, and it's very offensive. Yeah. And I'm going to call it out. I've read the book,
and you did,
and I did, and I'm glad you apologized for that.
Like I said, it was. I did it at the spur in the moment. It was a rebuttal. Like I said, I'm 29. I'm still learning every day, and that's about it. One last thing I want to tell you. You're a good old American Christian, right? Okay. Leviticus 19:33, 34. I want to see your answer. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. What do you think about this?
That's an excellent response. Or question. And the answer is there were clear statutes regarding what period of time those individuals could be fully assimilated. 10 years for a Moabite. Amalekites were never accepted because they were hateful to the core against the state of Israel. It was the mission of that tribe to kill Israel.
Are you comparing them to Mexicans or?
So I've made no
Salvadorians
comparison. I'm giving you the argument that it is a privilege, and with this mandate you see in the Torah, in the Old Covenant, it was an essential rule to ensure that the customs would remain intact. Other things to consider. This has been a theological growth that's been so exciting for me. We don't live under that Old Covenant anymore. That was a special covenant given to the Jewish people. Why? To preserve and ensure the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, who now lives forever. We live under a new covenant, and you'll see it's very basic. Believe on me, love one another.
Jesus saying that part of the Bible shouldn't be considered anymore.
No, we don't.
Does that say anywhere in the Bible that shouldn't be considered anymore?
Jesus fulfilled the covenant. He made that very clear in Matthew 5. He also made that clear, and it's also explained in Colossians 2:13 through 15. We're not Jews living in Israel anymore, but the principles we can still draw from wisely. I mean, for example, I am not going to drop dead. I mean, there are the dietary laws. In Acts, God reveals to Peter, what I have cleansed, thou shalt not call common. The blood of Jesus cleanses forevermore. And those dietary laws are no longer necessary. Now, there's still wisdom in not eating pork. It's not exactly good for you. But you're not going to get zapped by lightning. You will not be condemned to die. Yeah. The way that you can see throughout the Old Testament. Elijah could call fire. It's a covenant of grace now. God's not on a rampage. He's not on a sin search anymore. He's just hoping that people will believe on his Son and receive his life. Yeah. But it's a principle that still is worth guarding. Moabites, it was 10 years. A good example of what needs to be seen. Ruth, beautiful account. And her words were very clear. She embraced fully the God of Israel and the customs. She said to her mother-in-law, your God will be my God, your people will be my people. Right. And what we're now seeing in unprecedented level is a lot of the illegals, especially dreamers, illegals are not interested in being citizens. They're not interested in becoming Americans. There is no earnest desire to be that. There is a desire to hold on to old destructive customs. The most extreme example would be like Naui and his coterie. And I have challenged him effectively. Do you want to go back to a culture where human beings were sacrificed to deities? I don't. Do you want to go back to a culture in which, the mode of transportation was by foot? They didn't even have the wheel. The Incan Empire didn't have the wheel. Native populations didn't have the wheel. There was brutal treachery and building and awful things.
If you ask me, the way they lived was way better for their environment.
Actually, I've studied this too. There were tribes that actually polluted the environment severely, that polluted water sources. They had to move to other areas. There were trade, and I'm not just talking about the trash.
You're saying more than now? With the whole pollution and the...
pollution certainly increased, and then there were ordinances enacted locally.
Flatulence? How we were, I mean...
ordinances were enacted in the 50s, and we have clean air now, because it was recognized, we don't need no Clean Air Act. LA got clean air without it. In fact, human response to local governments can ensure a proper environment. I'm not anti-environment. Republicans were pro-environment. They were instituting the national park system.
So you recognize there's the climate change and all that?
I do recognize it. It's not a serious issue, though. It doesn't require government intervention. The periods of time for warmth and cooling is far more expansive. 10 years is not enough of a window, 20 or 30. You can see research or extremism that was in the media in the 70s claiming that we were going to have an ice age. We didn't. Al Gore claimed that the ice caps were going to melt away by 2013. They didn't. In fact, we have polar bears now finding more land or more space to move around in. I also learned that they actively hunt human beings, so maybe it's a good thing to keep them at bay. They do. They literally do. They hunt animals. They hunt human beings. They love eating them. Just like they love going after seals.
Well, that was pretty much it. Honestly, that was what I wanted to know.
Cudahy was on my target list for a long time. I got a new job, and I had more time to be able to start going to the cities. And I found other surprises too. Jack Guerrero is as an example of what a Republican should be, working for local issues, caring about individual citizens, upholding the rule of law. And you read about that apparently, so I
Why
appreciate
does
that.
he deny that he's a Trump a Trump supporter or?
Well, look, seeing all the hateful vitriol against him in the
Yeah.
media, I would understand that. Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania didn't say one thing or another about Trump. My assemblyman actively rejected Trump, probably to his hurt, even though Trump won 27% in the 66th Assembly District and lost to Alvin Succi. Although it doesn't sound like the Trump dragged him down, it was just the registration disadvantage. There are political choices people have to make. Trying to think of Elizabeth Warren is not going to stab Israel in the back. It would just be too damaging to a potential campaign. If she ran for president, for example. Bernie Sanders is a Israel supporter, to the best of my knowledge, even though much of the left-leaning base is
Do you feel like
pro-Palestinian.
Bernie sold out after he lost against Hillary?
Yeah, he sure did. He was cheated. And that's what Miguel and I really resonate on that.
Yeah.
I wrote an article about Miguel for Town Hall. You should look it up. His shirt, he had Bernie everything. I was so impressed. What I like about a lot of these Bernie supporters is there's a desire for integrity, which I share. I don't think Bernie has it. I mean, for a guy who preaches socialism, he owns 3 condos. He's quite a propertied individual, and I'm becoming more alarmed because the single payer agenda is. You know, I hit an impasse with individuals. Well, I have Canadian friends who like it. It is a terrible system. Rationing, long lines, doctors quitting the profession, government incompetence is rampant because it's a government institution with no accountability. Do I really want the post office in charge of my health care? No. Let me take a step back and ask you something. You were a Bernie supporter, is that correct?
Before he lost to Hillary, yes.
Okay, then you supported Hillary?
No, I didn't.
You supported Jill, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't vote?
No, not for the national election. I didn't.
You just sat out.
I actually.
That's fine. I mean, that's a principled choice. I had Republicans who were so turned off to Trump, and they just didn't vote. Gary Johnson is not a libertarian, so I mean, that guy would put you in a jail cell for not baking a cake for a gay wedding. This is tyranny. No, I'm just not having that.
Yeah. If you want to know my honest answer, I actually wrote in Bernie on my ballot.
Yeah, okay.
So
a lot of people did that.
That's what I did.
Can I speak to another issue?
Yeah.
I'm venturing into deep waters here. You understand the trouble that I face. I believe even Adolfo Varas is aware of this, so I recognize a maturity that he has. You had asked me a question. I hear that you're anti-LGBT. Can I speak to that now?
Okay.
Okay. The whole problem with that debate, again, just like with legal immigration, I'm not anti-anything. I am pro-life, pro-family, pro-liberty, pro-reality, pro-biology. I have friends who used to engage in same-sex conduct. They don't anymore. It's not in the DNA.
You think it's a mental illness?
I know transgenderism is a mental illness because it is a blatant disregard for reality. DNA is distinct, male or female.
You don't think that they are born with sexual tendencies?
Now about that, people aren't born gay, but I also don't believe that someone wakes up one day and says, I think I'm going to be a homosexual today. So let me start with clinical realities and then we'll get to the psychological ones. So I am a little more sensitive now that I've been taught. It's pretty harrowing, man. A lot of homosexuals were molested as kids. It's overwhelming.
I don't know about the numbers, but I mean,
it's either that or there wasn't a strong male for men, or a strong female, like a clear demonstration for women. One gentleman, Ryan Sorba, he went into a gay bar in San Diego, and he just asked them, every one of them, the question. It was undercover. Do you think you're born gay? And they all said no. They're safe. It's not public to their minds. They're anonymous. So there's that, and we've had a syndemic of sexual venereal disease in LA County, and it's gay and bisexual men. Ricardo Lara had a forum to deal with this issue. Okay, Lara was molested as a kid. It was terrible. I heard this story. I talked to one of his colleagues, John Morlock, who is as right as it gets. And, he has a compassion that I don't know how to embrace, but he's like, I don't hate him. I love him. I pray for him.
Yeah.
It was a terrible thing what happened to him as a child.
Yeah.
But the answer isn't to impose this destructive ideology. And it is destructive. 20% of homosexuals, their lifespan diminishes by 20%. It's almost like smoking heavily or drinking yourself to death. This is destructive. Now, mind you, Margaret Thatcher, conservative, she wasn't even in the majority government at the time. And she had led the fight to decriminalize consensual same-sex behavior. People aren't going to get set free if you condemn them. I want to be very clear about that. I don't believe in hanging people from trees or throwing them off of buildings because of this matter. But I'm a stand for truth guy. And now the political repercussions are tyrannical. Laura essentially wanted to shut down every Christian college in this state. That's outrageous. He wants to throw away the First Amendment in the name of non-discrimination? I don't think so. I ain't having that. I told you about Gary Johnson. I hated him more than I hated Hillary. Because he was emphatic. He said, religious liberty is a black hole. We're just not going to fight for it. Excuse me? This country is founded on religious liberty. Okay? The Pilgrims, the Separatists, the Episcopalians, the Catholics came here to Maryland to escape persecution. No, we're not giving that up.
You don't believe in separation of church and state?
It's not in the Constitution, actually. It's not.
Was Thomas Jefferson Christian?
He was a deist, actually. No, he was not. He did not recognize the divinity of Christ. He actually purged the Bible, which my father was furious. He threw it away when he found out. He actually had bought it and then found out there were key passages, tossed it. Yeah. Christianity is a person. It's not a set of ideas.
Right.
And we're seeing serious problems here. Transgender, it is a mental disorder. And now teaching kids this stuff,
I mean, you
no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
It's totally outrageous.
You said about that the majority of them were molested as children. I mean, that exists in everything. You go to strip clubs, the majority of strippers have been molested as children.
Yes, and the manifestation is to sell their bodies. And I don't condemn. That's another issue too. We're
I'm just a fair believer in pro-choice. If you want to be gay, go ahead. That's your life.
But you see, it's a choice. But it's being taught as you're born this way and you're trapped that way. Now, remember, I also had shared with you, Margaret Thatcher had allowed for consensual abuse. Right. It is abuse, by the way.
But see, we allow cigarettes, alcohol in movies and stuff like that. So
actually, we don't. But I mean, the general understanding is it's allowed publicly. As we're talking about victimless crimes or the individual is the only victim. But when it comes, and now it gets to other issues like the same-sex marriage issue. I'm sorry, but that institution is far more critical to our culture than we've realized. And pro-family types have relied on the tradition argument, which is offensive because it was tradition to allow blacks to be in the back of the bus. Tradition will never be a final justification for anything. What is true? Government cannot be the moral center. It cannot institute the fundamental values that are needed. Mom and a dad. Not two moms, not two dads. The spike of disease, dysfunction, and death associated with these behaviors is actually now becoming a great financial burden to our country. And the attack on marriage itself, it's disintegrating our culture. Family is essential. It takes a family, not a village. It's a mom and a dad. Even openly gay individuals like Milo have advocated for this. Milo himself had said, if I could take a pill and end this desire, I would. What's needed, and that's where it is right now. And I may still get weird looks. I was in Berkeley on Saturday, and
so technically you're saying you're not anti-LGBT, but you are a fair believer that it's mental illness. Isn't that
transgenderism is a mental illness and homosexuality is an emotional?
Isn't that also anti-LGBT? You're still falling in that category?
Ironically, no, because it's not an identity. You see, it's the identity politics
game
I am fed up with. You hate me because you don't support my lifestyle. No, I do not.
No, nobody's saying that.
Loving parents love their children even if they're doing destructive things. And specifically, I'm looking at the political fallout. Kids are forced to learn this. A parent in Massachusetts didn't want his kids learning about same-sex behavior as a norm. It's not. It's destructive. He was arrested for that. This is 1984 tyranny, dude. We got to take it seriously. A urologist in Massachusetts was fired from his job. He's a urologist, and he had homosexuals as patients, and he was telling them, anal. Pardon my vulgarities here. I'm glad you came and not your kids, okay? It's a sensitive subject. Yeah. It's destructive, man. It's destructive. A phrase I like to use, it's not bigotry or Bible thumping. It's biology. And it's truth that sets people free. It's truth that gives people a wide life. Liberty is really hard to appreciate if you're operating in falsehoods. And libertarians don't get that. That's why I don't advertise myself as a big L libertarian.
Quick question about the pro-life thing. Let's say a certain individual was raped.
I support abortion. I would allow a choice.
Or
Most women demonstrate such courage, they choose life. Okay. See, if you want people to choose, they often choose the right way.
Right. And what about if the baby is undergoing medical issues where if the baby is born, the mother can die? What do you say then?
In instances like that, it has to be a choice. How I always tell people, I am pro-life. I recognize that person.
Right.
It's a person. Right. It's life. There's a burst of light when conception occurs. This is a medieval argument. They were discussing this even then. They had a sensitivity to this. Abortion should be in limited circumstances, in cases of rape, in cases of incest. It's bad enough that one trope I put out was if she didn't have a choice, she needs to have a choice. That's what I mean. Most women will risk their lives to give birth to their children. Women are so resilient in that. It's so honorable. And thank God those are extremely limited circumstances. Abortion should not be based on trimester. That's outrageous. It's a life. At 8 months or 1 day, it's outrageous this is, again, it's biology, okay? It's more young people are actually pro-life because the technology is so incredible. Richard Nixon was pro-choice. Gerald Ford was pro-choice because they didn't have a biological recognition.
Yeah.
Reagan was pro-choice. Then he changed. Trump was pro-choice.
Yeah. Well, that guy,
I didn't trust him. That's why he wasn't my first choice.
That guy, he's played both parts. He was a Democrat and he was a Republican.
And he was a reform candidate, and you can see why I sat on the fence for this guy. I was so depressed after Ted Cruz dropped out. And Walker was even bigger crush because I thought he could handle anything.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you've read the things I've written, so I'm honored by that. Thank you. But Trump has exceeded expectations. He's engaged. He's done more work as a conservative than Reagan did, certainly than Bush Senior or Junior. So yeah, I'm not a card kid. And just because you're a Republican doesn't mean I'm going to line up. Just as you didn't line up for Democrats, just because Hillary's the nominee. I feel I will never understand what you and Miguel and all these other Bernie supporters felt. I would just be.
I was shocked.
I'd be throwing chairs.
Yeah.
It was criminal what they did, and they're BSing about Russia. I think the DNC should be investigated by its own grassroots for the crap they pulled. To the best of my knowledge, Republicans don't do that, and it would have been foolish if Reince and his team tried to pull strings to stop Trump. They were black, Hispanic. We doubled our black vote, 13%. I know, but it's still doubled. The Hispanic vote exceeded Romney's. It'd be foolish to try to undermine Trump. And he won states we haven't won in 30 years. That was the best thing for me. So, I'm going to depart. You had said you wanted to speak to me because you were thinking about running for office?
I am. In the future, I am.
You're running for Cudahy, is that correct?
Yeah, most likely. See what happens.
Are you on board with the things that Chris and his little coven of corrupt people are doing? It's in paper, and this is not